We did it for phase 2, so of course we're gonna do it for phase 1. This is ranking every single thing from phase 1 of the High Republic, including the books, the comics, the short story collections, and the shows. This has the potential to be a lot longer than the phase 2 one, and if you have no idea what I'm talking about, maybe go watch that one first. I'm not gonna go over all the details here. The TLDR for what I'm doing, this year I'm on the quest to go through all of Star Wars chronologically, thus why we started with phase 2 of the High Republic. On my way through this journey, I've been making short form TikTok videos about every project as I've gone through them. There should already be a compilation of that up on my page, which I will hopefully link in the card right now. If not, it's definitely down in the description. As for this video, I'm going to go through, give the briefest summary and review that I possibly can, because again, they are going to be in that compilation / on my TikTok. And at the end, we are going to take a look at the tier list that we've got going. That will be a combination of phase 1 and 2. So let's jump right into it. If I was being smarter about this, I would have pulled all this off of my shelf already, but I kind of don't want to destroy it, so we're gonna leave it here and pull as we need, I think. The first thing though was not a book, it was Young Jedi Adventures Season 1. This of course is our great friend Nubs, one of the main characters of Young Jedi Adventures. There are 3 seasons of this. The first one loosely takes place before any of the High Republic books even start, and we know this because in the last episode of Season 1, this is a spoiler, they go to Starlight Beacon's dedication ceremony, which takes place at the end of this book. This is one of my favorite animated projects from Star Wars. I think that Season 1 really holds up. It is the one that I have watched the most, so I do have a little bit of nostalgia for it, but nostalgia for like 2 years ago, so I'm not sure if that even counts as nostalgia. This is an A for me. I love this season. I love this series. Enough said. Next, the first book in the High Republic Phase 1, Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule. This is an S for me, with the caveat of I had to read it twice for it to get to this. This book is very dense. It is the introduction to the entirety of the High Republic, so it did have a lot of heavy lifting to do. I think that it is good bones for the rest of the High Republic, but I would be lying if I said that I liked it on first read. As for whether or not it is above the S tier books for phase 2, that is a really, really hard choice. I don't think so, but it is very much tied with Convergence. I like all of those books. Because I had to wait for a second read to really understand and enjoy this one, I don't think that it gets to usurp either of them as the top spot, but nonetheless, it is an S tier. It's a good read. Next, A Test of Courage by Justina Ireland. This is the first middle grade / young readers book in the High Republic. Again, on second read, I found myself a lot more cool with this one. I wasn't a huge fan of it the first time I read it, but to be fair to myself and to it, that was the first time I had ever read a middle grades book, not being a middle grades aged reader. That being said, this is a B for me, and posthumously, I also moved Quest for Planet X up into B tier because I like this one just as much as I like that. So they're B's. Next, Into the Dark by Claudia Gray. This is the last time I will say during this I liked it more the second time I read it. Obviously, I love Claudia Gray's writing. This is no exception to that. It is pretty big for being a YA, but I think that it is really well done, if a little slow at times. But by no means a bad book. This is an A- for me. Next on our list, we are back to Young Jedi Adventures, seasons 2 and 3. We'll rank them separately. Season 2 for me is an A+. I think that it is a little bit of an improvement on season 1. It has a little bit deeper tones. It deals with things that are not as childish, but are still obviously made for children. I think that it took what season 1 gave us and only improved upon it. Season 3, on the other hand, I did not like at all. It is significantly shorter. It's only 7 episodes, where the other 2 are 20-ish. Overall, I didn't care for it. It seemed very rushed. Seems like the only reason that series was made was to bring it to an end, and that's fine. Usually, everything has to come to an end, especially with these shows, but the way that they did it felt like there was no love put into it at all. It felt very, again, rushed. Up until the last 7 minutes of episode 7, I thought that I was going to give that season a D, but I really, really, really enjoyed the time skip at the end of the last episode. I did cry during it, so I'm gonna leave it at a C-. Next, you're gonna see me hold this up several times because it is the omnibus for all of the Marvel comics for phase 1. The one that we're talking about right now is volume 1 of the High Republic 2021, called There Is No Fear. These comics are by Kevin Scott, and for me, the first volume volume, which is issues 1 through 5, is an A tier read. I quite enjoyed them. It is, in the grand scheme of the first half of the High Republic, kind of a generic story about a group of Jedi finding a Dren gear and fighting it and being like, whoa, what the heck is this thing? Or, whoa, it's a Dren gear, why is that here? But, you know, it's a good story. I like all the characters involved in this, so for this one at least, it's an A. Next, we have Race to Crashpoint Tower by Daniel Jose Older. This was a 5-star read for me when I read it for the first time. This time around, I liked it marginally less. This is a B tier for me. It's cute, nothing super special. I do love, though, how it ties into our next book, The Rising Storm by Kevin Scott. This is an S tier, best of all time kind of read for me, and I think the first point of real drastic conflict within the High Republic Phase 1. It's really well written. I would say basically all of the adult books within the High Republic are good reads, and this is no exception. It's probably at the top of my S tier, at least until we get to the next one. Next, we have The Edge of Balance Volume 1, which is the first volume of the High Republic manga. This I found to be fun, if a little lackluster. It is again a story about a bunch of Jedi finding a Dren gear and being like, oh my gosh, a Dren gear? But that being said, it's fine. I had a good time reading it. I'm gonna give it a B-. If anything, that's being carried a lot by the fact that I really like manga as a format, but hey, you know, it's my list. Next, we return to the omnibus for the High Republic 2021 Volume 2, The Heart of Dren Gear, again by Kevin Scott. There was something about these issues, and it was 6 through 10 of this series, that kind of gave me the ick. I don't know if it was the art or the coloring or the mix of the two. It felt very kind of muddy and dark, and I just didn't really care for it visually, and thus found it really difficult to get into the actual plot of it. I am the type of person that cannot read a comic if I don't like the art. I'm so picky about that kind of thing. So for those volumes, I'm gonna give them a D+. Next, also in this omnibus, we have Trial of Shadows. This was a comic mini-series by Daniel Jose Older. I gave this a D-. My sibling, on the other hand, gave this an S. They really, really enjoyed it. Personally, I had the same thing where I couldn't get past the art and the coloring. Next up, we have Out of the Shadows by Justina Ireland. I had a really difficult time reading this because there are parts of this that I actually really hated, and there are some characters in this book that I do not care for, but at the same time I liked the general plot and the idea of it, just the execution sometimes was not where I needed it to be, so I wasn't really sure if this was going to get a high rating or not. The first time I read this, I gave it like a 4.75, which I think was way too high. I don't know what I was thinking when I did that. I'm gonna settle on kind of a happy medium here and give this a C-. I do like the plot, and I do like the parts of this story about the Jedi, but the parts about Silvestri and Jordana, I really did not like. I don't like either of those characters. I thought the plot was weird and unnecessary, and overall, I think this book is just way too long. Thus, C-. Right after that, another one that I didn't really care for, Tempest Runner, the audio drama for this phase. This could have been an email, but more than that, this could have been a comic series. It could have been 2 comic series, actually. I don't really think that this story did well as an audio drama, especially because it was jumping back and forth between timelines with no audio cue that was happening. This for me is a D+. We then have Mission to Disaster, again by Justina Ireland. This one I actually quite enjoyed. Takes place kind of during and after Out of the Shadows, and I gave this one a B+. I didn't like this at all the first time I read it. I was pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed this one. Next, we have Edge of Balance Volume 2, which is the second volume of the manga. I liked this a lot more than I liked the first volume. It ties in really nicely with the Fallen Star, and the reason that I have it before it is because more than half of this book takes place before that book does. For me, this one was an A. We then have another thing from this omnibus, which is the High Republic 2021 Volume 3, Jedi's End. This, like Edge of Balance Volume 2, takes place before, during, and kind of also after the events of Fallen Star. This volume is issues 11 through 15 of these comics, and if I owned them in singles, I would have read 11 through 13 before the book, and then 14 and 15 after, but because I had them all in here and it is kind of a pain to sit and hold this open and read it, I decided to just blast through it all before. Though if you haven't read the High Republic before, I definitely suggest reading this after because it's a huge spoiler for the book. After that, we do get to The Fallen Star, which is by far the best book we've read so far. This is at the top of S tier. I wish that we had like an S++++++. This is my Rogue One. This is my Andor of the books. I love this one so dearly. It is so well done. Claudia Gray, best to ever do it in the book space, and I will keep saying that. This book is absolutely fantastic, and I really wish I could recommend to you that you could just go and read it without going through the rest of phase 1, because like it feels kind of a burden to tell you that this is such an amazing book, but you have to get through all of this to be able to read it. But honestly, that is kind of the situation that we find ourselves in, because if you don't read any of this, you're not going to have a great understanding of what's going on in this one. Not saying that it couldn't be done, just saying that I personally wouldn't recommend it without at least going through the adult and YA books from phase 1. After that, we have Midnight Horizon. I don't want to talk about this book any more than I have to. Hands down, this is one of the worst novels I have ever read. I would say that there was a half of a moment that I enjoyed within this book, and even that feels like I'm kind of forcing it. This book was so tonally out of place after Fallen Star. It doesn't really make any sense why this takes place after. If this book was maybe like before Rising Storm, it would have felt a little bit more in line with everything else, in my opinion, besides like the events of the last hour of this book. Overall, I hate this one. It is an F tier for me, even though I feel like kind of a jerk for putting it down there. Also, it is way too long. Way too long. That's the end of the books, but we do have a couple stragglers that either take place over such a long period of time that I decided to just put it after everything, or things where I wasn't really sure where they would fit until I read them, and obviously by then it's too late to decide. So those in order are the last thing in our omnibus here, Eye of the Storm, which is a 2-part comic series about Marchion Ro and his backstory, and also what he does in the direct aftermath of Fallen Star. I thought that one was overall fine, but it gets kind of weird towards the end. I gave it a B+, not bad, just not anything super special in my opinion. We then have the short story collection Tales of Light and Life, which is by a variety of authors. This actually includes stories about characters from phase 2 and phase 1, so if you have not gone through phase 2, I suggest saving this until you have gotten through it. Most of the stories in here I do really like. I ended up giving this whole thing an A. I would be lying if I said anything other than the fact that that A is held up almost entirely by the story about Bel-Zadifar in here. It is such a good story, and it is pretty structural for phase 3, so if anything, I highly recommend reading the Belle story in here, but overall, I think all of them are really enjoyable. There are short stories in here about basically all of your favorite characters from phase 1 and phase 2. Rupert Natani from phase 2, Axel Greylock from phase 2, Belle from phase 1, Affy from phase 1, Rem Jomarin from phase 1, Marta Rowe from phase 2. Really fun read, and a really good way to kind of wrap up those 2 phases. We then have Starlight Stories, which is a collection of short stories originally published within Star Wars Insider. They have been compounded into this book with some really cool artwork. I thought this was fine, nothing too serious or groundbreaking. These are all stories involving the cast of characters that you would be able to find around Starlight Beacon before the events of The Fallen Star. Again, nothing super consequential in here, but if you have the time, this is a pretty fun read. I ended up giving this a C. It's not terrible, it's just something that I constantly forget about. Before we get to our last thing in the phase, I do want to mention that there is one thing that is supposed to be right here that I could not for the life of me find anywhere. It is called Chronicles from the Occlusion Zone. It is a short story collection, again, of stuff originally published in Star Wars Insider. I know for a fact that it has been collected into one big print book. I just was unable to find it and thus could not read and review it. So that should be here. It's by Lydia Kong. Eventually, when I'm able to find it or get my hands on all of the individual Star Wars Insider volumes that it was a part of, I'm really excited to read them. I love Lydia Kong's writing, so I'm sure that they're going to be great. But at this moment, I cannot tell you even what they're about because I have no idea. The last thing within my timeline for the High Republic Phase 1 is The Edge of Balance Precedent. This story is partially a flashback into the time of Phase 2 during/after the Battle of Dona, but because it's staged and does have a little bit in the present time, which is the Phase 1 timeline, that is why we read it as a part of this Phase 1 chunk. This was an S tier read for me. I did not think that I was going to like it as much as I did. It's about the Wookiee Jedi Master named Arkov that have been in the previous 2 volumes. I thought this one was so much fun. It was so unexpected. It also has to do with Aslan Rel, who is a character who we saw in phase 2 that will be a lot more prevalent in phase 3. So to have a part of his story kind of kick us off into phase 3 was really unexpected, but really, really cool. And that is the entirety of phase 1 minus a couple things. I didn't say this at the top, so I'll go ahead and say it now. This is not everything. As a part of this Star Wars chronological order journey, I made the executive decision to not include any of the Dark Horse comics. And the simple reason for that is that I don't have access to them. Obviously, I do not have an infinite amount of money, and as much as I would love to be able to purchase all of these comics, I simply do not have the time or the budget to do that. And there aren't a lot of Dark Horse comics, but there are enough of them that I feel like I need to say up top that we're not reading them for this. Other things not included in here, there are some children's books about phase 1, and when I say children's books, I mean like actual paperback picture books that are retellings of Burjaga's story within the High Republic phase 1. They are super cute, but ultimately they are just retellings of what's happening already. I did not feel like it was strictly necessary to have those there. There's also one other children's book written by Charles Soule and his partner Rosemary that I read but did not include on this list because, again, it's a children's book. It doesn't strictly take place anywhere on this list. It is just kind of nebulously phase 1 High Republic adjacent. And again, I feel like it's not structurally necessary. So that was all of phase 1. The only things we have left in this High Republic chunk will be part of either the High Republic phase 3 or the couple of things that have to do with the Acolyte. If you want to see my review for those, you can find it first over on my TikTok. It's going to be linked down below. Like I said, as I go through and read all these, I do make a short form video giving a little bit of information about the books and also giving my general review and in the moment rating. Sometimes those ratings change, but I feel like especially for this one, they stayed pretty much the same. Here's a look at our tier list for everything in phase 2 and phase 1. If you want to follow along for this chronological journey, you can find me 2 places. One, right here at the end of each section, I'm sitting down and making a review just like this one, and I will also be posting compilations of all of my TikTok reviews before these videos go up. If you want to watch the 2 videos for phase 2, they're already on my page. If you would rather watch the videos in the compilation in the moment, you can find me over on TikTok, which will be linked down below. It is twin.sunns with 2 N's. And as I go through and read all of these things, I sit down there and do a short form video that talks very vaguely about the plots of these books and also what my initial thoughts and reviews are. That's gonna do it for this video. Thank you guys so much for being here. I really do appreciate you. If you have gone through phase 1 of the High Republic, I would love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to leave all of them in the comments and we can have a little conversation about it. I will be right back here as fast as I possibly can to talk about phase 3 of the High Republic and everything beyond that. I believe that I've said all I needed to say. So as always, I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Let's just go ahead and move all the toys out of the way before we get crazy.